Good morning and welcome to today's webcast, Refocusing Retail 2018 Industry Trends. Before we begin, I'm going to play a brief housekeeping video.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're pleased to present another in our ongoing series of continuing professional education webcasts to help companies and individuals conquer challenges as they plan for what's next. Our presentation will start in a few moments. Before we begin, here are a few things to keep in mind. You can customize how you both view our presentation and interact with the presenter. For better viewing, close all other applications and turn up your speaker volume. You can also adjust window size and placement or enter full screen mode using the controls at the top of the window or dragging the bottom right-hand corner to resize. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of icons, each relating to a different aspect of our session. You can download the group attendance sheet and a PDF copy of today's slides from the slide deck and handouts widget to the right of the slide view. You can ask our presenter questions during the webcast by typing a question in the Q&A window below the slide view and clicking submit. We'll do our best to answer all questions during the presentation or follow up via email. If you experience technical difficulty during today's presentation, refresh your browser by hitting the F5 key. Today's session will offer you 1 CPE credit. To receive credit, you must meet the requirements as specified by the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. You must attend at least 50 minutes of the session and respond to at least 75% of the polling questions, which we'll ask throughout today's presentation. To respond to a poll, click the button next to your answer. We'll track your progress and alert you when you've earned CPE credit. You can then click the certificate icon in the CPE Progress widget to open a PDF file that you can save to your computer. Don't worry if you can't download your PDF certificate today. We'll email a copy to you in 2 weeks. If you're attending this webcast in a group, you must complete our attendance sheet to receive CPE credit. The attendance sheet is available in the slide deck and handouts widget. Please have all group members sign it and send only 1 sheet per group. Also note that CPE credit can be awarded only to participants registered as themselves and isn't available to participants who view the on-demand version. As a reminder, the presentation you're about to see isn't legal, investment, or accounting advice. We encourage you to seek the counsel of a professional service provider to apply this content to your specific circumstances.
And Frank, I'll turn the line over to you to get us started. Frank, we're going to turn the line over to you to get us started today.
Emily, are you there? Are we good?
We're live.
Okay. Sorry, everybody. I'm welcoming maybe, several hundred of you based on what we see in the attendee list. A lot of old friends, some new ones, all different sections of the retail industry, all different geographies. So what you can see in front of you today is a list of things that we think are critical to anybody dealing in the retail space. And within that, you'll notice 4 or 5 of these are highlighted in green. And it's just so much going on that I don't think we can get through all of it in an hour. So those will be part of a deck that either you've already downloaded or you will be able to download after the presentation with respect to our link that we're going to send to you. So let's get going. You can see the topics, and we can we'll just click into them. You don't need me to read through those right now. So you're going to hear today, the theme is going to be refocusing the lens. And the concept here is that you need to be really looking at your consumer and thinking from terms that they are in the center of the model. So the difference really is historically retailers have been pushing product out to consumers and asking them to buy. Now, if you look at this very simple graphic, it's obvious that you have to focus on the customer, but the customer is touching every one of these things. So feedback from them will enhance or alter how you deliver product to them, what they want mobilely, their social media comments that you are trying to push to them at the same point they're communicating to their communities as well. So this is really, if you just get a mental picture, this is the key. If we compare what I would like to call yesterday's retailer versus going forward to tomorrow's retailer, historically we were pushing a story. Now we're talking about what our consumers are doing, what our customers are experiencing, and sharing that with the community. The next big thing is about transparency versus content, not just putting out info, but explaining where your product is sourced, where you are invested outside of purely selling product, being part of the community, and that is not the community of the producer or retailer, it's the community of your end user. Clearly, what this keeps talking about is empowering the customer, and what that means is listening and changing, the iteration and having curiosity about what they want and modifying. One of the big changes is it's okay to be wrong. You don't have to put out something that's exactly what the consumer wants. What they're interested in is providing feedback and seeing you modify how you react and interact with them. So as far as the trends go, very, very quick. So many things are happening. Like I said at the outset, we can't even cover them all in an hour. But the key is evolve, move, keep up, or you'll be in the third bullet point, which we know. I mean, some of these companies we've known for decades, and they are disappearing because they haven't really adapted to what the consumer says must happen. You'll see, by the way, at the end of the deck, you'll see a listing of the new buzzwords, and transparency is one of the ones I already referred to, and it's really what the company stands for, how you source the product, and communicating that clearly to your consumer, because that is one of the big buying factors these days. Okay. Another point that we want to make is the experiential part of the consumer's life. Now you're talking about helping them, how they use things, how they interact. The interaction is really generating products. So whether you want to talk about the Echo and talking to Alexa, or just managing your consumer's health and how to monitor that digitally, look out for their best interests, all of these things, even personalized gift cards where instead of it being, sort of a, very, very impersonal experience with happy birthday, here's a gift card, go buy something, to actually having their face on it, it transcends the message, which is key. It's all about the experience. So, of course, we have to share with some numbers, and we every year pick out what we think are extremely compelling numbers. And so here are some of them that they got our attention. Globally, e-commerce is on a pace to hit $4.5 trillion by 2021. And if you look at it today, it's roughly half that number. So we're talking about doubling in 4 years. 25%, if you want to use that rounded figure as far as the growth rate. If you can stay pace with that, then what we're experiencing overall with some of the bricks and mortar challenges, that you can be successful. You can avoid the slide before talking about not evolving and dealing with the bankruptcy. Other just staggering stats to me and changes. Basically, 2/3 of I don't even know why we call them smartphones now. We can just take out the smart part. All of the phones are smart. 150 times a day. It's a staggering opportunity for you to influence your customer. What I see as one of the very interesting changes is in the grocery world, and one of the parts of the deck that we have is specifically identified at grocery. So if you download that, you'll see it. More than half of grocery is now being digitally driven. It's maybe one of the fastest transitions as far as method to shop for a particular category. The other thing that probably doesn't come as much surprise, but the number is significant, up to 20% of the downsize and geographical footprint and square footage at the bricks and mortar. And then, again, social media. I don't know when the 86% approaches 99. Maybe there will be some people that won't join, so we won't get to 100. But it will be. It's at this point, it's not a prevalent trend. It is a way of life. So looking back a little bit on holiday, and one of the things that excites me when we talk about retail is not all the publicity about the negative parts, but overall, retail is up 5.5% in the holiday of 2017, well above the 2016 increase. So when all of your friends are talking about retail in a negative manner, let them know that year over year it continues to grow. Okay. Clearly, you can see now we're up to 20%. On the online or digital channel, and that continues to go in that direction. You can see a staggering number when we're talking about smartphones. So really what we're talking about is communication. $7 billion in what? A weekend. Seriously, $7 billion of what? The ability to upgrade, to interact with you as the deliverer of product. So at this point, what we're hoping to get from you is some feedback on how you're currently operating. So Emily, you want to go ahead?
All right. Our first following question, how does your company approach your customer? And your options are transactional, telling the customer a story or instruction on how to use product, or leveraging the customer experience and telling their story. I'll give everyone a few moments to respond. To participate, please click the button next to the answer you choose and hit submit. I'll give everyone a few more seconds here. And let's take a look at the results. Frank, back to you.
Actually, this is awesome. That I would be very encouraged as we're seeing more, actually the largest category at this point, of really interacting with the customer as far as putting the customer forward. What do they want, leveraging the experience. The transactional, I don't know exactly why that is the case, but I think our emphasis is moving, and so hopefully we will see the purple bar in the next year and the next year become clearly the way to go, because I'm concerned. But I guess if we were into the details of transactional, there may be specific reasons as to why. But this is the highest number we've seen where the focus of the customer is in the middle. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about today's consumer, right? So we know everything's driven digitally. We understand that. That's pushed. But they're also, for lack of a better term, have a bit of ADD. You got to keep entertaining them, stimulating them, and be very conscious, like we were at the outset here, trying to cover everything. It would probably take in 2 hours instead of an hour. We have to be conscious of everybody's time. All right. One of the big things on this slide is that not every interaction is a sale, right? It's about, did you have an experience? How do you develop that loyalty that they're going to come back to you always? Really, really think in those terms. If you have that relationship, then the product will be bought. I think one of the retailers in my mind that does an outstanding job in this area is REI. I know when I go either online or in there, it's about what I want to do, what am I trying to achieve, what are my needs, and then ultimately, oh, by the way, we have something for you that will make your experience excellent. So that's one of many retailers that are doing a great job. So I give you just a second to digest these numbers. The Instagram and Snapchat are taking over. One of the things that I found really interesting in the studies that we looked at were the influencers. So we've been talking about influencers now for a couple of years, and you can maybe say Kim Kardashian, for example, one of the biggest names in this world. Gets a lot of press, but what most of our clients are finding these days is that it's not necessarily that huge name, that there are people that have 100,000 followers, not 1 million or 10 million followers, that are really driving business because it's more relatable. I know that a number of our clients reach out to these groups, and so I guess what I would comment on is not only do you want to think in terms of what's the message that's out there and are they relatable, but from a financial standpoint, obviously these influencers that have 100,000 followers are significantly less costly, and the benefits are disproportionately good. All right. So the millennials, right? I hope that everybody now listening today thinks of millennials in an extremely positive way. I think there's a lot of negative connotation that goes along with that category, and I think it's unfair. But if you don't want to do the right thing because think positively about the population is a good way of going, then you can think the business case. So $3.5 trillion in spending power. So pay attention to them. Okay, how are we going to convince them to buy our product? One is the experiential process that we talked about earlier, but there are certain expectations, and it has to do with speed and timing delivery. Do not make them wait. Do not have a register when they could pay by their phone as they walk by, and make sure you tell them thank you. So one of the very, very prevalent trends that we're seeing is getting directly to the customer. Okay, and this was a staggering stat, I thought, which was if a consumer can go directly to the brand and cut out the middle person, then 9 out of 10 times they would prefer that. So how do we get them to move with the social media driving to the brand? What is amazing to me is I don't think I can talk to anybody in the country and say the word Amazon and then think of anything other than the platform. They're not going to tell me about a river, and it's very, very well known. But the actual Net Promoter Score, where it really talks about brand loyalty, is higher in a lot of brands that have achieved a direct-to-consumer model. This is why. Okay. Just give people a chance to read through these points. All right. So it again, it is not feeling like it's a middleman. It's interacting with the customer, and this is just a vehicle to do so. So what we've done is we've identified a couple organizations that we think are doing pretty phenomenal, and just look at some of these numbers. I don't actually know. Maybe I should know how many dogs are in this country, but it's a huge market, and the partnerships that are being reached out through Bark are phenomenal. Boxed, and I think maybe there's some people on the phone from Boxed, shared the fact that they're a 9-figure company inside of 5 years. Whatever kind of growth rate you want to apply, go ahead. It's staggering. Here's a third one, and we can list others, but what's amazing here, this is also about a 5-year-old company. There are a total of 6 million brand promoters and customers there. You can think of this in terms of the old model of multi-level marketing, but it's not really that. What it is that the consumer is so emphatic about the product that they're telling their friends, their family, and now with the ability of the e-com world, doing their own pop-up shops and having tremendous growth. I mean, seriously, we're talking about more than 1 million new customers a year at this pace. So here we go with the second polling question.
All right. How do you drive consumers to your website? Your options are click-through advertising, social media, labels attached to consumer products driving people to the brand site, brand promoters, bloggers, etc., or coupons, buy one, get one offers, etc. And as a reminder, if you would like to receive CPE credit for today's webcast, you will need to respond to at least 3 of the 4 polling questions. And this is our second question. I'll give everyone a few more moments to make a selection. And let's see what everyone has to say. Frank, back to you.
Okay, I'm just taking a quick look at the other one. Interesting. So there's very little, at least current perceived value on the brand promoters and bloggers, and social media is by far the dominant factor. So I've got to believe that in the social media there are let's call it unpaid brand promoters that are you're leveraging, and it's clearly the dominant factor. I would love to have conversations with the details behind that. I think that there's been a big push into the social media arena. I don't think it's going away. I think it's consistent with the discussions we had earlier about letting the customer share their experience. And I think probably if we delved into that, it's very interactive. There's push coming from the company. There's information coming back and adapting. So good to see the movement into the technology. So with that, I will flip it over here. Darrin, I think you're going to deal with the bricks and mortar.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. When we talk about bricks and mortar, we either talk about revival or survival. And we've chosen, obviously, in this section to identify a few companies that we think are in the revival stage, not necessarily the survival stage. And you'll see that they all leverage some kind of combination of these things, right? The unique pull to get people into the store, or that it's an experience, or that technology is being leveraged as well as the retail brick and mortar as well. So we'll identify a few of those. The first two we'll look at, I think of as value retailers or discount retailers, and their obvious platform is offering, for TJ Maxx, is offering designer goods at discounted prices. And speaking to Frank's earlier slide about millennials, they are a powerful buying group, and they seem to be focused on value more than they are paying full price and going into the big stores. They don't care where they have to walk into to get the designer label that they can walk out of at an affordable price. And then Ulta, obviously, they've combined both the low-cost items as well as a service component to it that creates an experience as well as just the low-cost items. A couple other ones, we identified IKEA as unique. Everyone knows who they are. What's unique about them is they're really trying to working hard at bridging the digital and the physical, and doing it in a tough market, if you think about it, to do. Furniture is not the easiest thing to move, but they are really pushing to bridge that gap between the digital and the physical. And then Dollar Tree obviously is all about convenience. They are trying to get customers money as fast as they can. 320 new locations is out of this world in this day and age. Couple more. This is more speaking to the experience side of things. So obviously Coach we know is handbags, but they've now allowing people to create their own custom designs, custom wallets, custom bags. Lululemon, as a lot of you know, yoga wear, and they've actually combined to have fitness classes on site in some of their stores, and also the ability to, again, personalize and custom make your own clothing. And then a couple more experiences, and these are solely focused on personalization. Obviously Hershey, candy, sugar, everything these days is getting a bad rap, but they've figured out a way to bring people into the stores by personalizing their own Hershey bars and wrappers. And anyone who's stepped into an American Girl store knows what they're all about. They take personalization to a whole nother level. So those are kind of some of the brick and mortar stores that we've highlighted and looked at just from the perspective of, what's their niche market? Are they value proposition or convenience? Are they looking for building an experience for the people who come in? So that's going to bring us to our next polling question. I'll let Emily take it from here.
All right, thank you. Our third polling question. If you have a brick and mortar presence, have you seen an uptick as a result of digital and in-store integration, innovation, changing product delivery experience, innovation changing the store or community experience, or we don't have a brick and mortar? And for those of you that would like a copy of the extended slide deck, you can download this now from the folder that says slide deck and handouts to the right of the slide view. We'll also be sending this to everyone via email after the webcast. I'll give everyone a few more moments to make a selection. And let's take a look at the results. Darin, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting how many online retailers we have on the phone or in a different market. But those of you who obviously are brick and mortar, you are working on the 2 to 3 things that are critical, right? How do we create an experience? How do we pull that customer in? How do we get them to spend time and ultimately convert them into a transaction? And obviously, people are working on the digital and in-store integration. And when we talk about that, we're not actually talking about, are we leveraging iPads and tablets and that type of stuff. We're actually talking about, are we meeting our customers where they're at? Are we getting them information where they exist? And we'll talk about that in a couple slides down the road here. But it wouldn't be a great presentation from accountants if there wasn't accounting considerations. Now, here's the good thing. There's only 2 slides on this. We really wanted this to be more focused on the retail environment, but there's been a couple bigger items that have come up that we thought would be really important to talk about. And obviously, one of the big ones was the Tax Act that was passed at the end of 2017. And we looked at the industries that would really benefit from this, and by far one of our leading ones was the retail sector. Whether it's the lower corporate and individual rates, whether it's the potential flow-through reduction, and whether it's fixed asset depreciation acceleration. There's a lot of great items that passed in the Tax Act for retailers, and hopefully that allows them to, reinvest those dollars into technology. And how are we leveraging the data we're collecting and thinking about that type of stuff? Obviously, the other flip side is not only will it be good for your actual companies, but it should be good for the consumer, right? The majority of people will have a tax cut, and we're hoping that they are spending that on goods that you are selling. And we should start to see a little bit of that uptick already, because the IRS has already changed the W-4 withholdings, and so everyone's paychecks, actually, if they kept the same withholding, would have bumped up this month. So hoping that turns into a little more consumerism. The other positives, one of the things that's not being talked about at all is the border adjustment tax not being part of tax reform. And just as a reminder, the border adjustment tax is going to be an additional tax or surcharge, if you will, on goods produced overseas, not domestically produced items. And so that did not pass. It fell off of the table along the way, which is good for a lot of people, a lot of companies on this call. Obviously, like we talked about before, one of the goals is provide a boost to the economy, and also, with the more flattening of the tax rate, encourages foreign investors to invest in the U.S. economy. So, several good things coming off of that. If there's any questions or anyone wants to talk about that in more detail, my name's Darin Goehner. I'm a tax partner here. And so I am more than happy to sit down with anyone and talk about what it means or planning ideas around how you're structured to take the biggest advantage of the tax reform. The one other item we have that we've been talking about for a couple years is the lease accounting standards. And the real key here is just to know, in theory, what's being looked at is all your leases would go from being operating leases to capital leases. So it really affects your balance sheet. And if there's controllers, CFOs, directors of finance on this call, the discussion should be had with the banks right now as to, what do our covenants look like and what will they look like going forward once this takes hold. And when I say takes hold, it's slated to go into effect for 2019 for all publicly traded companies, and everybody else would have until 2020. So again, we always say there's time, but 2019 and 2020 are coming faster than we think they are. So again, just an opportunity to have a discussion with your banks, and it's more of an accounting issue than anything else. It's not going to affect your business as a whole. I'm going to switch gears, and we're going to talk a little bit about technology. Obviously, technology is, as you can hear from what Frank was talking about, what I'm talking about, and what Francis, who will speak next, is talking about. It's really driving a lot of change, and the question is, how are we as retailers embracing that change and leveraging it? One of the big words was the Internet of Things, right? The interconnection of computing devices and the power of that. And they're projecting in 2021 that there'll be 1 million new Internet of Things devices sold every hour. With that, it makes me pause and wonder, what's the security behind that, right? If there's all this cloud computing going on, we've obviously seen retailers who've had breaches, and how are we making sure that we protect against those breaches? Because it's great to have a lot of information, but it's terrible from a PR standpoint when all that information gets breached. And I'm preaching to the choir here, so I won't go on. The other thing is predictive analytics, right? Are we using those things to help understand what is our customer really going to do next? And I'll talk about more of that in the next slide. We have several examples here, and I alluded to it a couple slides back, that how are people using technology these days? Again, it's not we have a kiosk for people to self-check. It's really, how are we meeting the customer where they are with what's in their hands or on their wrist? So you can see Kroger, as an example, is using geolocating technology where they push deals and notifications to clients or to customers when they are in a specific aisle. Augmented reality, right? I mean, you look at the last one where people can put on virtual reality settings and view a couch in their own home. Now, this may work for some, right? And some people, you probably don't want that couch to be seen in their house because you want them to see that they're stepping it up a bit. But for a lot of people, it provides the opportunity of, okay, do I get an L-shaped couch? Do I get just a regular sofa? What does that look like in the place where I live? So there's a lot of technology out there that can be leveraged. The geolocating seems to be the big one being pushed right now as far as identifying how can I meet my customers where they're at and get them as they're shopping and already in that groove. Big data. Okay, so we've talked for years about the collection of big data. We've talked a lot about, how do you do it? Customer loyalty, all these other things. How are we collecting email addresses? I'm of the opinion that I think email addresses, I think we get good responses out of them, but it's a very passive form of communication. What I see with the millennials these days is if we can get their cell phone numbers. I mean, you think about that, that's a game-changing thing because this generation will never have a different phone number. And if we get that phone number, we've got them hooked. And the question is, okay, it's not about the collection of information, but how are we mining that information and how are we interpreting it? What are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with all that data? And how are we going to leverage it to them? And where are we going to meet them where they live, right? We don't have to be in front of a computer or in a store anymore to meet them. So how are we leveraging that and where are we meeting our clients? So there's a combination between knowing exactly what your target market is and also where do we meet those customers. And really, this next slide is just a picture of what it looks like. Flip the triangle over from the years that we've been talking about, get all the information you can, and start spending your time interpreting it and then influencing the buyer. Because that, at the end of the day, is what big data is all about. I mean, big data for big data's sake is a waste. It's what are we doing with it and how are we meeting our customers. And the last two slides I'll kind of go through. AI, you've heard a lot about it. And really the summary of this slide, in my mind, is how can we push transactional behavior to artificial intelligent responses and then leverage our humans if we're in store for relationships and experience, right? I look at AI as far as how can we treat the run over tackle, the 80% of the interactions that are transactional with AI and leverage our people, our bloggers, or whoever else for that relationship and that connection. And one of the examples of this is something that Spade is doing. There was a gentleman who was going to buy a bag for his wife for an anniversary and started on his phone and texted to Spade, I'm interested in a handbag as a gift. And AI responded with, great, what style, hand, over the shoulder, clutch, wallet? He responds, over the shoulder. Great, what type of material? He responds, leather. Great, we have 15 available styles that meet your criteria. Here's a link to the style and place the style that you want in the cart. So there was two options to this. He could either purchase it there or he could be taken to another site where he could view all the options in a web view rather than in text. So there is, it's really amazing what AI can actually do given a number of questions that you can ask, and it can actually guide customers through the decision-making process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Francis to talk a little bit more about technology. So take it away, Francis.
Thank you. So this is Francis. I'm the IT guy, so I look at everything kind of differently from Frank and Darin. They look at it from more financial and tax as well as other stuff. So from my perspective, the last few years in the IT world is just amazing. It's very, very just amazing. I guess I borrow a line from Independence Day. It came alive. So that's how we see it. All these technology that you have heard in the past about data analytics, about social media, wow, that kind of changed the way how people do business. So this topic here, this is only one of many topics I can talk for days. Blockchain, this is a buzzword you might have heard in the past, year or two. And if you are used to the EDI, electronic data interchange in the old days, this is what to me is like a glorified as a EDI on steroids. Blockchain is a peer-to-peer form of trading that eliminates a middleman. In this case, could be the bank, could be a company, a third-party company that will enhance, that will facilitate an exchange of information, goods, or whatnot for procurement or payment of cash, whatever. So this is a way that, in a way, if you can picture, if you keep a journal, an electronic journal, you keep one, I keep one. When we exchange information, we make a note, we make a journal entry into your journal, into mine. That's how we keep track of it. We don't need a third person. So a third person comes in, he will keep also an electronic journal. When there's a transaction between one and two or three, 1 and 3, we'll keep a journal entry. So enough people will, keep that. Whoever, if there's a discrepancy, the majority will rule. So that's the idea of this blockchain. So as you can imagine, this is purely between the people who exchange information, goods or money or whatever. You don't need a third person. The benefits of that, as you can see here, there's increased security around transactions because there are not as many parties touching them. And then there are more consumer control about their own identity, reduction in fraud and all the stuff. Of course, there will be no middleman. In this case, well, you know what? We don't have to pay the middleman. There will be less costs, and we can pass the savings to the consumers and all that stuff, So this is the beauty of it. It involves more people currently outside of the financial system, expanding demand for your product and services. So this is pretty obvious because you only involve the people who are who have a stake in it. You don't need a bank or payment processor in this case to be part of the exchange. So this is all the benefits you can see. Again, there are of course cons to it. There are many things that you have to watch out. I probably can't talk about all these today, but as you can imagine, blockchain is a big thing that you'll hear more and more. Cryptocurrency, right? That's a big name. But blockchain has a lot of different applications. For example, if you want to buy something, in the old days, you have to maybe in the EDI with a certain vendor and whatnot. But if you have set up a blockchain of these journals with suppliers, you can directly put in an entry. They can look at it in a very in-time manner. There won't be a third person, middleman, a warehouse, whatnot. They can ship the goods to you. So there are all kinds of applications of blockchain technology. This could become, it may not be the mainstream form of transaction in the near future, but it will be closer. So as you can imagine, there are different factors, different forces pulling them, hey, I don't want it, especially in, let's say, cryptocurrency, right, as an example. The banks may not like it. The federal governments may not like it because they do not have the control as in the past. But for a lot of people, they like it because the currency will not be affected by, for example, political environment, who is going to be in charge and all the stuff. Is the interest rate going to go up or down? They will have less influence on the cryptocurrency going up and down. So there are many benefits to it. Next one here. So the other thing that you, as a retailer, you may want to know, our society is getting more and more closer to a cashless society. So I heard this probably about a year and a half ago. Many people have predicted that very near future, probably within 3 to 5 years, if you want, you don't need any cash. You don't need any credit cards, even credit cards in your wallet. The smartphones these days, as you can imagine, they can replace everything you have in a traditional wallet, cash and credit cards, and even watch and calendars, right? All those things are in the smartphones already. Why is that possible, or why is that coming to a fruition? So, as well, the reasons, as you can see here, with the proliferation of RFID, near-field connectivity, NFC, with a little chip within your credit cards, those are really facilitating a lot of payments like Google Pay, Apple Pay, Google Wallet, PayPal, all the things, which are already in use in Europe, Asia for many years. U.S. is actually behind by about 10 to 15 years. Credit card scanning is possible. You don't necessarily have to swipe it anymore. You don't even have to insert it. In many cases, you tap it on the scanner, you're good to go. And then, of course, when you exchange cash, the bills have a lot of people touching it, and diseases, drugs, and whatnot can be found on these bills. And then a lot of the millennials, they are now really kind of don't want to carry anything. They want to have nothing in the wallet. A cell phone will be what they prefer to carry. So as you can imagine, because of the proliferation of these chips, you can literally carry a cell phone and go to buy things, get on the public transit system. You can, pay for almost anything you want these days and replace cash and as well as credit cards. So this is a very big convenience. So as you can see the theme here, what Frank and Darrin have talked about, we want to make the customer experience as good as possible, as quick as possible. We don't want them to even think, hey, I need to whip out my wallet, get out my credit card, and all the stuff to pay for certain things. A tap would be good enough. Typing is even slower. So we'll talk about the next slide. We'll talk about how can we make it even faster and easier for the consumers. So the variety of the payment methods these days, I guess a lot of you have heard of these things already: Apple Pay, Google Wallet, PayPal, Alipay. All forms of payments that you do not need to have cash. You only need a credit card and file, and that's it. You just Amazon Go, right? You can walk in, get what you want, and everything is on file. You can walk out. That's a trend that we are seeing. Make it as easy as possible. So we talk about, hey, how can we make it even easier? Now, before we still have to insert a card, maybe even type in a PIN and all the stuff. Now the next generation is they say, well, maybe we can make it even easier by doing voice, conversational commerce, and facial recognition. Alibaba has launched this Smile Pay that literally allow people, if you smile, you are authorizing the payment. That's good. So don't smile when you look at certain things. That's a warning. Apple has a 3D facial recognition for phone access and payment. So I think the iPhone X already has it. You can enable that. You can enable the facial recognition. If it recognizes you, boom, you're good to go. You don't even need to type in a code, whatever. So facial recognition based on AI, what Darin was talking about for Spade is a very good example. Voice recognition. So it's all driven by AI. It's all driven by a robot. They anticipate what you're going to ask, what you need, and ask all these questions. So facial recognition combined with AI would be a very good way to make it as even shorter than the traditional method of buying things. AI married with WeChat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger creates conversational commerce. So again, they want to make it very easy. They don't even want to type anything. They don't even want to think twice. Everything will be, try to influence you to buy certain things, and as quickly as possible, making the consumer experience as quick as possible. 19% of the iPhone users access Siri, Google. So I think, I don't know about you folks, but for me, a lot of times when I'm driving, which is not, I don't want to type anything, I'll just say, hey, Google, I'm going to this. Google, I want to look this up. And it will bring it up very quickly. So that, again, is changing the way we do things, buying things, and looking up different materials. So with that, I think we created a new, different kind of problem because, well, when you make it so easy for people to buy things and authorizing transactions, cybersecurity is going to be a problem. In your web page and your mobile apps and whatnot, when you code these things in, you want to make sure that, hey, I don't want to put in a lot of barriers for people to authorize it. But on the flip side, you make it easy for the hackers, for the bad guys to do things, right? That's, good and bad about the whole thing. The number of U.S. breaches have gone up, way up, since the introduction of the chip, the EMV chip on the credit cards. A lot of those now maybe drive it down, but the card not present fraud has gone way up. An annual study conducted by Lululemon Institute and sponsored by IBM, the average breach is currently 3.62 million globally and is 7.35 million in the U.S. This is going to go up. I think this number is probably low comparing to what we really know in 2017 now. A lot of the frauds is not even reported, and for obvious reasons, because people do not want people to know. They want to lay low and get it fixed, and don't want that kind of publicity. Several types of cybersecurity breaches: identity theft, hacking, malware, phishing are used to target all types of organizations, not just the big retailers. So obviously you have heard about the Facebook, the one about Cambridge Analytics. So the more you use social media, this type of breach is going to happen more and more. They're not going to maybe target the Facebook, Instagram, whatnot, but they may target the third parties who will be getting the information from these parties. So when you use these social medias for your business model, keep that in mind. How safe are the third parties? So with that, we can talk about some of the solutions. I wouldn't call this a silver bullet. There won't be a playbook, universal playbook that say, hey, if I implement all these measures, you're good to go, you're 100% bulletproof. Never. This is the ugliness of the proliferation of internet and World Wide Web and mobile apps, because there's so many, I call it entry points and exit points of information. You got to protect all of them. Investment in education and awareness. So, again, I kind of talk to different people. Hey, employees are your best defense, but on the flip side, they're your worst. They are your worst defense and your weakest link. So you have to get the C-suite, the board of directors, or all employees to embrace the idea of, hey, we need to protect the information. The information that employees, whoever going to touch, if they do not protect it, they are sloppy, they're careless. Whatever technical safeguards you put in, they're going to defeat it. So they are the key to your entire defense system. Often overlooked by companies due to time and effort and money. The training, the education, it's always like, it's not going to happen to me. That's wrong thinking. Maybe it's maybe true in 10 years ago when we don't have all these internet connections, mobile apps, when we're still using mainframes, right? No, that has changed with all the connection points, mobile apps, and social media. That is going to be changing. If you are not careful, that could defeat any kind of technical safeguards you're going to put in. Investment in technology, that's obvious. With all the changes in the nowadays network, infrastructure, web apps, and whatever you have, the network infrastructure design and perimeter solutions, protections are key. Whatever whatever you have got, let's say 3 years ago, are probably obsolete by now. Anti-malware, data leakage strategies, you got updated on a very frequent basis. Some of the names, some of the vulnerabilities we have heard in the past, the portal, the heartbleed, all those things you have heard maybe a year or two ago. Yeah, they have been patched, but guess what? They have a new one that will be coming out every day. So I was reading some of these hacker sites, and some of the guys got 30 months yesterday for developing a malware. Guess what? There will be a whole bunch of people who will be doing it because the payday is just tremendous. They are not going to give it up. Security, information, and event management solutions. These are the things that, again, whatever we do, whatever protection you do, may not catch what they're going to design tomorrow. So some of these things is they're looking for patterns. They're looking for symptoms. Anything that is not abnormal, you want to make sure you look into it as opposed to, yeah, it's no big deal. Don't put it aside and then sweep it under the rug. They could be symptoms that something bad could be happening. Incident response, make sure you have an incident response right now as opposed to wait until something happens, then you look into it, because by that time it'll be too late. Backup and restoration processes, these are the things that you want to look into in case something happened. If you got hit by malware, ransomware, denial of service attack, how can you resume your operations? So depending on what kind of business continuity objective you may have, is it 1 day, is it 1 week? You have to accordingly design your backup and incident response strategies. And then, of course, depending which states you operate in, each state has their own very stringent privacy and breach disclosure laws and rules, in California especially. So if you're not complying with these laws, you could be up for a lot of damages, a lot of lawsuits, right? One thing that we didn't say here, cybersecurity insurance, look into it. If you have, do a lot of these collection of personally identifiable information in your course of doing business, look it up. In case you have a breach, what are the recourse? What can you get in terms of cybersecurity insurance to mitigate your risk? So that's pretty important. At this point, I think we have the next polling question, right, Emily?
Yep, and we're on our final polling question. Which one is a key component to your cybersecurity profile? And your options are information security policy and procedures, security awareness training, technical infrastructure, database, operating system safeguards, cybersecurity insurance, all of the above, or use of iCloud or Dropbox. And once you have completed all CPE requirements, you will be able to download a PDF of your CPE certificate from the certification widget to the right of the slide view. I'll give everybody a few more moments to make a selection here. And let's take a look at the results.
Well, that's good. I think everybody is aware of what's important to your cybersecurity profile. I mean, the use of iCloud and Dropbox is good, but then you have to be aware of what kind of information, sensitive information you may have in your company. Maybe they're all in iCloud and Dropbox. Even if it is all in iCloud and Dropbox, you have to do some other things to secure that. So that may not be the best answer. All of the above, the 1, 2, 3, 4, would be the best things that you can do to protect your cybersecurity profile. Over to you, Emily.
All right. With that, I think we have some time for some Q&A. If you have any questions for our presenters, you may enter those in the Q&A box underneath the slide view, or all of their contact information is also available in the speaker bio widget if you would rather reach out to them directly. And let's see here. Do you think the off-price retailers like TJ Maxx can create an experience online that they will invest in the e-commerce channel?
Emily, this is Frank. I can address that. It's very interesting because they're somewhat contrary. In TJ Maxx, their online presence represents about 1% of their sales. So, we see everybody moving in a direction. We even saw it here at 57% of the participants today don't have a physical presence. What is unique, as Darrin presented about TJ Maxx, there's value, and the consumer goes there knowing there's value. But one of the additional things that they're really banking on, which is quite interesting and to me sometimes defies logic, but I still, when I cruise by a park by my house on Sunday evenings, see a circle of 30 people still playing Pokemon Go. And like, why is this happening? Why does this phenomenon exist? And I think it's very, very relatable to TJ Maxx. It's the hunt. So if you go into one of those stores, you are going to get a discount. You are going to get something of a brand name at great value. But you get to search through things and look. And generally speaking, the online environment is driven to be able to find things very quickly. And so they're kind of contrarian and they're capitalizing on that. And it's working for them. I don't think it can work for everybody. And it's the nature of the beast because they're not a full product line assortment, full size range. So I think that's a little bit of their secret sauce. And from everything I've read about them, they're going to continue in that direction. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Frank. And it looks like our next question is for Francis. Doesn't it appear that Treasury regulators in the U.S. and Europe are now focused on bringing significant regulation to blockchain transactions?
Well, we haven't seen a lot of regulations yet about blockchain. Blockchain is I wouldn't say a very new technology because this is based on what we call the PKI, private key interchange technology. But I think now they're looking into how they can audit this, how they can look at this to avoid people laundering money. That's number one. And then I think you might have, I don't know if you've seen it, there was one case, I forgot where it was, said in Japan or something like that. Somebody stole somebody's Bitcoin. And I think that was a bad thing about the key management company. as well as I don't know who leaked out the key, because there should be two keys. One is by the key management company and one by the owner. So I don't know how they breached those two keys. So I think those regulations will come out more and more. But right now, you're right. I don't see a lot of regulations on the IT side. I can't speak about the financial side, but maybe Frank and Darin can speak about that. But yeah, this is a newer thing. The more they come out, I think you'll see more regulations coming out.
All right, we probably have time for one more quick question. Do you see Amazon driving other retailers out of business soon?
Okay, I can address that real quickly, and then maybe we can squeeze one in, maybe not. But with respect to Amazon, last night I went to a awards for the California Grocers Association, and at one of the honorees was Kevin Davis, who's the CEO of Bristol Farms, and his comment was, look, and he went through the last 40 years of threats to the grocery world, and from consolidation to, oh no, Walmart and Target are going to sell food, to what's going to happen with Amazon taking over Whole Foods. And their businesses are thriving because they have changed how the customer experiences, and they're moving up with technology, making it easier, and people like to go and select their products. So in that world, that's their take on it. And another thing that I will mention is if you look at Amazon and Kohl's, why is that happening? Because Kohl's believes that Amazon can drive traffic. So I think the concept here needs to be Amazon's a game changer. You need to change your game. And some people are collaborating with them. Some people are competing on different things that they're better at than Amazon can be. And so I think that's really the mindset. And again, it's all part of the evolve or go away. So I see everybody coexisting, being smarter and quicker.
Thanks, Frank. Well, one more question. What are you seeing in smart retailers? How are they using the big data? Do you have an example?
Yeah, this is Darrin. I'll answer that. Specifically, and I'll make one comment about the last question too, about the Amazon is you got to realize Amazon is still a transaction, right? They don't offer an experience to what they're doing at this point, in the grand scheme of things. So the more you can connect with consumers in that way, the better. As far as the smart retailers using big data, I'll give you a for instance. Is we have one retailer who has tracked their customer base based on when they shop and when they come through the store, and they're actually offering special deals on certain days that they either know they come in, so they're already there, and they shoot it to their phone while they're in the store. It's not using geolocating yet to that extent, but they have invested in knowing and tracking when customers are coming in because they can see it through the register transactions, whatnot. And so they'll pick days to offer them deals while they're assuming they're in the store. Now, if they're really smart retailers, they'll use geolocating and push it to them while they're in specific aisles and see what they've bought in the past. But again, that's one, for instance, is when are they going to be in the store? The other, for instance, is when they're actually buying something, how can they, we have a retailer that links that to, if you've bought this item, you should look at this item. And it'll alert a customer representative in that store to go grab those three things and bring them to the room, the fitting room. So really kind of crazy stuff. But again, it's trying to, meet your customer where you're at. And so those are two examples of retailers that we've seen using those.
Awesome. Thank you, Darrin. That is all we have time for Q&A today. If you had a question that we didn't have a chance to respond to, we will follow up with you after the presentation. And a big thank you to our presenters, Frank, Darrin, and Francis, for a great presentation. As a reminder, if you attended today's presentation in a group and would like to receive CPE credit, you must complete the group attendance sheet found in the slide deck and handouts icon to the right of the slide view. If you participated as an individual and met all certification requirements, Your certificate is available to download now in the CPE Progress window to the right of the slide view. I'll keep the webcast console open for a few minutes to give you time to download your CPE certificate. A copy will be emailed within 2 weeks should you have any difficulty downloading it now. Here is a link to an online survey where you can provide feedback for today's presentation. Please take a moment to complete this survey as your feedback is very important to us. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll join us again next time.